It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. This sentiment echoed through the drawing rooms and parlors of Hertfordshire, where the Bennet family resided. Mrs. Bennet, a woman of considerable ambition regarding her daughter's futures, was particularly excited by the recent arrival of Mr. Charles Bingley, a wealthy bachelor who had taken up residence at Netherfield Park. The news of his wealth and status sent ripples of anticipation through the local society, igniting hopes and dreams of advantageous marriages. Mrs. Bennet quickly began to plot how best to introduce her daughters to this eligible gentleman, envisioning the prospect of securing a match for at least one of them. Her husband, Mr. Bennet, a man of dry wit and little inclination for social maneuvering, found amusement in his wife's fervent schemes. He teased her about her eagerness, knowing well that the pursuit of marriage for their daughters was a matter of great importance in her eyes. The Bennet household, consisting of 5 daughters, Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia, was filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation at the thought of new acquaintances. Jane, the eldest, was gentle and kind, embodying the ideal qualities of a prospective bride, while Elizabeth, known for her intelligence and sharp tongue, was less inclined to conform to societal expectations. As rumors of Mr. Bingley's charm and amiable disposition spread, the Bennet sisters found themselves caught up in the whirlwind of social expectations, each harboring their own hopes and aspirations for love and security. Little did they know that their lives were about to change dramatically, setting the stage for a tale of pride, prejudice, and the complexities of human relationships. The excitement in the Bennet household grew as invitations to social events began to circulate. Mrs. Bennet was determined to secure an introduction to Mr. Bingley at the upcoming ball in Meryton. As the evening approached, the sisters prepared with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Jane, with her beauty and gentle nature, was the focus of their mother's hopes, while Elizabeth, often dismissed for her spirited opinions, felt a mixture of curiosity and skepticism about the evening's potential. When they arrived at the ball, the atmosphere buzzed with laughter and music, and the sight of Mr. Bingley, handsome and affable, captivated the attention of all present. He moved through the crowd with ease, greeting acquaintances with warmth and charm. Elizabeth observed him with keen interest, noting his easy demeanor and the genuine joy he brought to those around him. However, it was Mr. Bingley's friend, Mr. Darcy, who caught her attention for an entirely different reason. Tall and imposing, Mr. Darcy exuded an air of aloofness that set him apart. His pride was palpable, and when he refused to dance with Elizabeth, deeming her tolerable but not handsome enough to tempt me, she felt a spark of indignation. The slight ignited her curiosity about him, and she resolved to learn more about the man who seemed so impervious to the charms of society. The evening unfolded with laughter and dancing, but the contrast between Bingley's warmth and Darcy's haughty demeanor lingered in Elizabeth's mind, setting the stage for the complex interplay of pride and prejudice that would soon ensue. In the days following the ball, the Bennet family buzzed with gossip about Mr. Bingley and his friend. Mrs. Bennet was particularly eager to hear news of Mr. Bingley's intentions, convinced that he would soon be courting one of her daughters. Jane, who had caught Mr. Bingley's eye during the dance, received a note inviting her to dine at Netherfield, which delighted her mother. Elizabeth, however, remained skeptical of the whirlwind romance brewing between her sister and the charming bachelor. She noted the contrast between Bingley's affability and Darcy's disdainful attitude, which only fueled her curiosity about the latter. When Jane left for Netherfield, Elizabeth could not help but feel protective of her sister, wary of the influence of Mr. Bingley's proud friend. At home, Lydia and Kitty were preoccupied with their own fantasies of romance, dreaming of the officers stationed in Meryton. Their youthful exuberance was a stark contrast to Elizabeth's more cautious approach to relationships. During Jane's visit, Mr. Bingley's warm demeanor shone through, and Elizabeth observed how he treated her sister with genuine affection. However, Mr. Darcy's presence loomed large, and Elizabeth found herself increasingly intrigued by his complex character. As she pondered the dynamics at play, she began to realize that first impressions could often be misleading, setting the stage for her evolving perceptions of both men. As days turned into weeks, the social interactions between the Bennet sisters and the Bingley party continued to unfold. Jane and Mr. Bingley's connection deepened, and Elizabeth watched with a mix of joy and apprehension. While Jane blossomed under Bingley's attentive gaze, Elizabeth found herself increasingly drawn to Mr. Darcy, despite his earlier insult. His proud demeanor intrigued her, and she began to question the assumptions she had made about him. One afternoon, while visiting her sister at Netherfield, Elizabeth found herself alone with Mr. Darcy. The conversation began awkwardly, but as they spoke, she discovered layers to his character that contradicted her initial impressions. He revealed a depth of thought and a keen understanding of societal expectations that fascinated her. Yet, his pride still irked her, and she challenged him on his views, sparking a lively debate. Their exchanges became a dance of intellect and wit, drawing Elizabeth further into his world. Meanwhile, Jane's affection for Mr. Bingley flourished, and the prospect of a match between them seemed increasingly likely. However, Elizabeth couldn't shake the feeling that Darcy's presence would complicate matters. The tension between their growing attraction and the societal pressures surrounding them began to emerge, setting the stage for the trials ahead. Elizabeth's resolve to understand Darcy better intensified, even as she remained wary of his pride, hinting at the complicated relationship that lay before them. The arrival of Mr. Collins, a distant cousin of the Bennet family, added another layer of complexity to the already intricate social landscape. Mrs. Bennet was ecstatic at the prospect of his visit, viewing him as a potential suitor for one of her daughters, particularly given his position as the heir to the Bennet estate. Mr. Collins, a pompous clergyman with an inflated sense of self-importance, was eager to impress his wealthy patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh. Upon his arrival, he quickly made his intentions known, declaring his desire to marry one of the Bennet sisters. Elizabeth's initial reaction was one of disbelief. She could not fathom marrying a man so devoid of charm and wit. During a dinner at the Bennet household, Mr. Collins monopolized the conversation, regaling the family with tales of Lady Catherine's greatness while completely oblivious to the discomfort of his audience. Elizabeth and her sisters exchanged glances, struggling to suppress their laughter at his absurdity. When Mr. Collins proposed to Elizabeth directly, she politely declined, asserting her independence and desire for a marriage based on love rather than convenience. Mr. Collins, undeterred by her rejection, insisted that she would change her mind, showcasing his inability to comprehend her feelings. The situation became increasingly ridiculous as he continued to press his suit, much to the amusement and frustration of the Bennet family. Elizabeth's refusal of Mr. Collins marked a pivotal moment in her journey towards self-discovery and autonomy, setting her apart from the societal expectations that dictated the lives of many women around her. As Mr. Collins persisted in his pursuit of Elizabeth, the tension in the Bennet household escalated. Mrs. Bennet was horrified by Elizabeth's refusal, believing it to be a grave mistake to turn down a man of Mr. Collins's status. She implored her daughter to reconsider, emphasizing the financial security that such a match would provide. Elizabeth, however, remained resolute in her decision, valuing her autonomy and personal happiness above societal pressures. Meanwhile, Jane's relationship with Mr. Bingley continued to flourish, providing a stark contrast to Elizabeth's predicament. The sisters found solace in their bond, sharing their thoughts and dreams as they navigated the complexities of love and marriage. One day, Jane received an invitation to dine at Netherfield once more, and Elizabeth encouraged her to go, hoping that the growing affection between them would lead to a proposal. However, she couldn't shake her concerns about the Bingley sisters' influence and the potential obstacles they posed. As Jane prepared for her visit, Elizabeth reflected on her own feelings toward Mr. Darcy. Despite his prideful demeanor, she found herself intrigued by his intelligence and depth. Their conversations had sparked a connection that was both frustrating and exhilarating. Elizabeth grappled with her emotions, torn between her initial impressions and the complexity of his character. As the days passed, the dynamics between the Bennet sisters and the Bingley party continued to evolve, setting the stage for unexpected revelations and challenges that would test their relationships and beliefs. During Jane's visit to Netherfield, Elizabeth received news that would alter the course of her life. Jane returned home with a radiant glow, having spent a delightful evening with Mr. Bingley. Their connection deepened, and Elizabeth felt a surge of happiness for her sister, yet unease lingered in her heart regarding the Bingley sisters' intentions. Meanwhile, Mr. Collins remained a constant presence in their lives, insisting that he would return to propose to Elizabeth again. His persistence was both amusing and infuriating, and Elizabeth's resolve only strengthened with each encounter. One afternoon, as Elizabeth strolled through the gardens, she unexpectedly encountered Mr. Darcy. Their conversation began with the usual tension, but as they spoke, Elizabeth discovered a new layer of vulnerability in him. Darcy revealed his admiration for her intelligence and wit, which surprised her. Their dialogue shifted from contentious to contemplative, and Elizabeth found herself captivated by his insights. However, the societal divide between them remained a barrier, and Elizabeth wrestled with her growing attraction to a man she had initially deemed proud and arrogant. The complexities of their relationship began to unfold, revealing a dance of emotions that neither could fully understand. As the days passed, the interplay of pride and prejudice continued to shape their interactions, setting the stage for the challenges they would face in their pursuit of love and understanding. As Elizabeth navigated her feelings for Mr. Darcy, the arrival of new social events provided opportunities for further interaction. The Bingley sisters hosted a gathering, and Elizabeth was determined to attend, hoping to gain insight into the dynamics between her sister and Mr. Bingley while also confronting her feelings for Darcy. The evening was filled with laughter and music, but Elizabeth felt a growing tension in the air. Mr. Collins, ever eager to impress, was in attendance and made a spectacle of himself, attempting to engage Elizabeth in conversation while simultaneously boasting about his connections to Lady Catherine. Elizabeth found herself torn between amusement and exasperation, longing for a moment of genuine connection with Darcy. As the evening progressed, she caught glimpses of Mr. Bingley's affection for Jane, which filled her with hope for her sister's future. Yet, it was Mr. Darcy's piercing gaze that held her attention, and she could not shake the feeling that their paths were intertwined in ways she had yet to comprehend. When the opportunity arose for a brief conversation with Darcy, Elizabeth seized it, challenging him on his views of social class and the expectations placed upon them. Their discussion was charged with tension, and Elizabeth felt a thrill of excitement as she engaged with him intellectually. Darcy, in turn, seemed intrigued by her spirit, and for a moment, the barriers of pride and prejudice began to blur. The night ended with a sense of unresolved tension, leaving Elizabeth pondering the complexities of her feelings and the societal constraints that threatened to keep them apart. As the days turned into weeks, the relationship between Jane and Mr. Bingley blossomed, much to the delight of Mrs. Bennet. Elizabeth, however, remained wary of the Bingley sisters, particularly Caroline, whose subtle manipulations seemed designed to keep Jane and Bingley apart. Elizabeth's protective instincts kicked in, and she resolved to support her sister while navigating her own feelings for Mr. Darcy. One afternoon, while visiting Jane at Netherfield, Elizabeth found herself embroiled in a conversation with Caroline Bingley. Caroline's thinly veiled attempts to belittle Elizabeth only fueled her determination to stand her ground. As the two women exchanged barbs, Elizabeth felt a growing sense of empowerment, refusing to be intimidated by Caroline's snobbery. Meanwhile, Mr. Darcy observed the exchange with a mixture of admiration and concern, recognizing Elizabeth's strength and resilience. As the evening progressed, Elizabeth and Darcy found themselves alone, and their conversation took on a more personal tone. They discussed their differing views on society and class, and Elizabeth challenged Darcy to reconsider his preconceived notions. In turn, Darcy revealed glimpses of his vulnerability, sharing the weight of his responsibilities and the expectations placed upon him. The connection between them deepened, and Elizabeth felt a spark of understanding that transcended their initial animosities. Yet, the specter of social class loomed over them, reminding Elizabeth of the barriers that still existed. As she grappled with her growing feelings for Darcy, she also felt the weight of her family's expectations and the societal norms that dictated their lives. The arrival of a letter from Mr. Collins marked a turning point in the Bennet household. In his typical pompous fashion, Mr. Collins announced his intention to visit again, this time with the sole purpose of proposing to Elizabeth. Mrs. Bennet was horrified, fearing that her daughter's refusal would lead to scandal. Elizabeth, however, stood firm in her decision, determined to maintain her independence. The tension in the household reached a boiling point as Mrs. Bennet fretted over the potential consequences of Elizabeth's refusal. When Mr. Collins arrived, he wasted no time in presenting his proposal, extolling the virtues of their union and the benefits it would bring to both parties. Elizabeth listened with a mix of disbelief and amusement, unable to take him seriously. When she firmly declined his offer, Mr. Collins was taken aback, insisting that she was merely being modest. The absurdity of the situation only heightened Elizabeth's resolve, and she repeated her refusal with unwavering conviction. Mr. Collins, undeterred, continued to press his suit, believing that persistence would win her over. The scene was both comical and frustrating, and Elizabeth's sisters watched in astonishment as their mother attempted to intervene. Ultimately, it was Elizabeth's fierce declaration of independence that silenced Mr. Collins, leaving him bewildered and frustrated. The encounter solidified Elizabeth's sense of self and her determination to choose her own path, free from the constraints of societal expectations. As the weeks passed, the dynamics between the Bennet sisters and the Bingley party continued to evolve. Jane and Mr. Bingley's relationship flourished, but Elizabeth remained cautious, aware of the subtle manipulations of Caroline Bingley. Elizabeth's feelings for Mr. Darcy also deepened, despite the barriers of pride and social class that separated them. One evening, while attending a gathering at Netherfield, Elizabeth found herself in a heated discussion with Darcy about the nature of pride and prejudice. Their conversation was charged with tension, and Elizabeth challenged Darcy to confront his own biases. As they debated, Elizabeth felt a growing connection with him, as if they were peeling back the layers of each other's personalities. Darcy, in turn, seemed captivated by Elizabeth's intelligence and spirit, recognizing her as a formidable opponent. However, the reality of their social standings hung heavily in the air, reminding them both of the obstacles they faced. As the night wore on, Elizabeth couldn't help but wonder if their connection could transcend societal expectations. Yet, doubts lingered in her mind, fueled by the opinions of others and her own insecurities. The evening ended with an unspoken understanding between them, a recognition that their relationship was far more complicated than either had anticipated. The arrival of new guests in Meryton brought fresh excitement and intrigue to the social scene. Among them was Mr. Wickham, a charming and handsome officer with a captivating smile. Elizabeth was immediately drawn to him, intrigued by his stories and easy demeanor. Wickham quickly won over the Bennet sisters, regaling them with tales of his experiences and engaging them in lively conversation. However, it was his connection to Mr. Darcy that piqued Elizabeth's curiosity. Wickham spoke of Darcy with disdain, painting him as a proud and unprincipled man who had wronged him in the past. Elizabeth, eager to believe Wickham's account, found herself questioning her previous impressions of Darcy. As she learned more about Wickham, she felt a growing affinity for him, captivated by his charm and charisma. However, the more she learned about Darcy, the more conflicted she became. The contrast between Wickham's affability and Darcy's aloofness deepened Elizabeth's confusion, and she struggled to reconcile the two men in her mind. The social dynamics in Meryton shifted as rumors circulated about Wickham's past and his connection to Darcy, creating a web of intrigue that ensnared Elizabeth. As she navigated her feelings for both men, she realized that the truth was often obscured by pride and prejudice, leaving her to grapple with the complexities of love, loyalty, and societal expectations. As the summer progressed, the tensions between Elizabeth, Mr. Darcy, and Mr. Wickham reached a boiling point. Elizabeth found herself increasingly drawn to Wickham, whose charm and charisma masked a darker reality. The more time she spent with him, the more she began to resent Darcy, convinced that he was the source of Wickham's troubles. When Darcy unexpectedly arrived at a social gathering, the atmosphere shifted. Elizabeth felt a rush of emotions as she confronted him, her feelings of indignation and anger boiling to the surface. Darcy, sensing her hostility, attempted to engage her in conversation, but Elizabeth was determined to keep him at arm's length. The misunderstandings between them deepened, and Elizabeth's perception of Darcy became clouded by her growing attachment to Wickham. As the summer wore on, Elizabeth's relationship with Wickham intensified, and she found herself caught in a web of conflicting emotions. Despite her initial reservations, she allowed herself to be swept away by Wickham's charm, ignoring the warnings of her family and friends. The complexities of love and loyalty began to unravel, and Elizabeth faced the harsh reality that her perceptions of both men were colored by her own pride and prejudice. As the season drew to a close, Elizabeth found herself at a crossroads, torn between the allure of Wickham and the nagging doubts that lingered about Darcy. The turning point came when Elizabeth received a letter from Mr. Darcy that would change everything. In the letter, Darcy addressed the misunderstandings between them, revealing the truth about Wickham's character and his own actions. He explained the history of his relationship with Wickham, detailing how Wickham had manipulated situations to his advantage and how he had wronged Darcy in the past. As Elizabeth read the letter, she felt a whirlwind of emotions. Shock and disbelief coursed through her as she processed the revelations about Wickham. The charming officer she had admired was not the man he appeared to be. Darcy's words painted a different picture, one of a man who had squandered opportunities and behaved dishonorably. Elizabeth's heart raced as she grappled with the realization that her judgment had been clouded by her initial prejudices. The letter also revealed Darcy's true feelings for her, expressing his admiration and regret over the way their relationship had unfolded. He apologized for his earlier behavior at the ball, acknowledging his pride and how it had affected her perception of him. As she read his heartfelt confessions, Elizabeth felt a shift within herself. The anger she had harbored began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of understanding and empathy. She realized that Darcy, despite his faults, was a man of depth and integrity, grappling with the expectations placed upon him by society. The complexities of their relationship began to unravel, and Elizabeth found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about pride, prejudice, and love. Determined to confront her feelings, Elizabeth resolved to seek out Darcy and discuss the contents of the letter. Their meeting was fraught with tension, but as they spoke, Elizabeth found herself drawn to the vulnerability he displayed. Darcy expressed his admiration for her strength and intelligence, and for the first time, Elizabeth saw a flicker of hope in their interactions. They engaged in a candid conversation, where Elizabeth voiced her initial misconceptions and the pain caused by the misunderstandings. Darcy listened intently, acknowledging his mistakes and revealing the depth of his feelings for her. As they talked, the barriers of pride and prejudice began to crumble, allowing for a connection that transcended their social standings. Elizabeth realized that love could be found in unexpected places, and she began to see Darcy not just as a proud man, but as someone capable of profound love and growth. The conversation marked a turning point in their relationship, igniting a spark of hope for a future that seemed increasingly possible. As autumn descended upon Hertfordshire, the atmosphere shifted, and the dynamics within the Bennet family evolved. Jane and Mr. Bingley's relationship blossomed, and Elizabeth felt a renewed sense of happiness for her sister. However, the specter of social expectations loomed large, particularly as Caroline Bingley continued her attempts to undermine Jane's prospects. Elizabeth's resolve to protect her sister grew stronger, and she became more determined to confront the societal norms that dictated their lives. Meanwhile, her relationship with Darcy deepened, and they began to navigate the complexities of their feelings for one another. Elizabeth found herself drawn to his genuine nature and the way he respected her intellect, while Darcy admired her independence and spirit. Their connection flourished as they spent time together, exchanging thoughts on literature, society, and their experiences. Elizabeth began to see Darcy as a partner rather than an adversary, and the barriers of pride and prejudice that had once separated them began to fade. Yet, the challenges of their differing social standings remained, and Elizabeth grappled with the implications of their union. As they faced societal scrutiny, Elizabeth realized that true love required courage and resilience, setting the stage for a journey that would test their commitment to one another. The culmination of their journey came during a pivotal moment at Pemberley, Darcy's grand estate. Elizabeth was invited to visit, and as she stepped into the opulence of his home, she felt a mix of awe and trepidation. The beauty of Pemberley was overshadowed by her insecurities about her own social standing. However, Darcy welcomed her with warmth and sincerity, dispelling her doubts. As they explored the estate, Elizabeth witnessed a different side of Darcy, one that was generous, thoughtful, and deeply connected to his family. The visit allowed her to see the man behind the prideful facade, and she began to understand the weight of his responsibilities. During their time together, Darcy revealed his vulnerability, sharing his hopes and dreams for the future. Elizabeth felt a surge of affection for him, recognizing the depth of his character and the sincerity of his feelings. Their bond grew stronger as they navigated the intricacies of their relationship, and Elizabeth found herself falling in love with the man she had once deemed proud and aloof. The visit to Pemberley marked a turning point, as Elizabeth embraced the possibility of a future with Darcy, one that transcended societal expectations and celebrated the power of love. As the season changed, so too did the fortunes of the Bennet family. The news of Jane and Mr. Bingley's engagement brought joy and excitement, but it also highlighted the challenges faced by Elizabeth and Darcy. Despite their growing love, the societal pressures surrounding them remained formidable. Elizabeth faced scrutiny from her family and friends, who questioned the viability of their union. However, she remained steadfast in her feelings for Darcy, determined to navigate the complexities of their relationship. The couple faced challenges from all sides, including the disapproval of Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Darcy's formidable aunt, who sought to maintain the status quo. Elizabeth's resolve was tested as she confronted Lady Catherine, standing firm in her belief that love should transcend social class. The confrontation was a defining moment for Elizabeth, showcasing her strength and determination to forge her own path. Darcy, witnessing her bravery, felt a renewed sense of admiration for her spirit. Together, they faced the challenges of societal expectations, determined to carve out a future that honored their love. The culmination of their journey was marked by a realization that true happiness lay not in conforming to societal norms, but in embracing their authentic selves. In the end, Elizabeth and Darcy's love triumphed over pride and prejudice. Their journey was one of growth, understanding, and resilience, as they navigated the complexities of their feelings and the societal constraints that sought to keep them apart. Elizabeth learned to look beyond first impressions, recognizing the depth of Darcy's character and the sincerity of his love. Darcy, in turn, came to appreciate the strength and independence that Elizabeth embodied, challenging him to confront his own biases. Their union became a testament to the power of love to transcend societal expectations and to forge connections that are genuine and profound. As they stood together, ready to embark on a new chapter of their lives, Elizabeth and Darcy realized that their love was a force that could overcome any obstacle. The journey they had undertaken was not just about finding love, but about discovering themselves and each other in the process. With newfound clarity and commitment, they embraced the future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their love and determination.